the barricades broken, all that, going through miles and miles of cities where nobody lived. It was all destroyed. And it was the oddest thing. It was just so eerily quiet. There were no kids in the streets. There was nothing going on. It was so eerily quiet, especially at night. And seeing the entire neighborhood, no power, everything was just black. So imagine what it was like for these guys. So, Noah had one thing in mind when he finally disembarked. Look with me in verse 20. Then Noah built an ark to the Lord. Look at that. It was ingrained in Noah, I'm sure, in his dad, I'm sure, in Enoch, I'm sure, because it all started with Adam and Eve when they were clothed. And Abel, who offered sacrifice. All through the first thing he does, stepping off the ark, is building an altar. Building an altar. And he took of every clean animal. Remember how many clean animals were supposed to come on the ark? Pairs of sevens. 3 pairs and 1 extra, right? So 7's coming on. So that 7th one is probably the one he offered. And he offers every clean bird, he took of every clean animal, every clean bird, offered burnt offerings on the altar, and the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth and on every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth and on all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hand. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. So there's their first mention of eat meat. Go for it. Time to eat whatever you want. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. It seems that prior to this, they had a vegetarian diet and the animals were reserved for sacrifice, but now, no longer. I've given you all things, even as the green herbs. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is the blood. You can't have it medium rare, sorry. You got to drain the blood. You drain all the blood. Surely for your lifeblood I will demand a reckoning. It's as if the Lord is saying, speaking of blood, let me tell you about blood. From the hand of every beast I will require it, and from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. Capital punishment. Not created by man, created by God. For in the image of God he made man. And as for you, be fruitful and multiply. Bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply it. Then God spoke to Noah and to his sons with them, saying, and as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. Thus I establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. So if you hear prophecies about the earth being destroyed by water, they're not true. We'll leave it at that. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you. And listen, every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. It wasn't just with Noah, but it was with all creation. God was making a deal with all creation too. And I set my rainbow in the cloud. It is set for a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. It shall be when I bring a cloud over the earth that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. The water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. The rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I will look on it to remember. Remember, this is what we talked about on Sunday in regards to how God remembers the covenant that He made. It's not that He forgets, but He remembers that He made a covenant and He's there to fulfill it. I will look on it and remember God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. So the rainbow was a sign that God would remember He's not going to flood the earth again. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. So I want you to notice very briefly these 5 things. The altar sacrifice, the promise, the seasons. Prior to this, there were no seasons. The first mention of government and a covenant. I think this is interesting. If we follow the flow prior and we see this idea of the work of the Holy Spirit, the old nature, the new nature, unclean, clean, the Spirit of God, the new world, and now the sacrifice. The sacrifice. I think this is interesting. For through the sacrifice of Jesus came what? The promise of the Father, the Holy Spirit, to empower us through what? The seasons of life. And guys, this is a wonderful picture that we're going to see here. See, God commands Noah here to disembark, and he knew what he needed to do. Give an offering. He gives an offering. And the very first stones on the earth since the flood are used to offer sacrifice to the Lord. In thanksgiving to God for His mercy, His goodness, and the sacrifice that He offered, it says that the Lord smelled it, verse 21, a soothing aroma. Well, you guys know what that's like. Don't you like barbecues? Seriously. I mean, when someone's barbecuing over by my neighbor, it's like, oh man, what are they cooking over there? It smells so good. It's an acceptable aroma. I mean, I'm sorry, whether you're vegetarian or not, or just a bad hunter, I don't know which one, but, you know, whether you, I mean, cooked meat just smells so good. And I can just see Noah, I mean, he's going into this fresh new world, and the smoke begins to ascend, and it says that it was pleasing to the Lord. He loved it. So it's easy to see the picture of Christ as that sacrifice, don't you think? Because He became the burnt offering. A burnt offering, you use the entire animal. Everything. There was nothing cut. It was just thrown on the fire. And that's what Jesus did. He gave of Himself completely. But you and I have the same opportunity. In Romans 12, 1 through 2, it says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. I like the NASB there. Your reasonable worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed, here it is, by the renewing of your mind. It's not about conforming, it's about being transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And then you have the promise. God promises, hey,